Although Manenkov took the win in one of the most topsy-turvy finishes we've seen last week, it's his first time finishing higher than 23rd. That means he was no threat to our current points leader Halliburton, who found himself regretting a last-lap error that kept him from seeing the checkered flag. But the difficulties faced at Mid-Ohio last week are child's play compared to this Midwest track. Detroit is about as punishing as they come, so any more silly mistakes could cause a retirement as quickly as it causes shame. Who's got the guts to toe the limit around here? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 5 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Stefan Schlacker. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Steph, Detroit is one of the newest circuits here on iRacing, and yet it's quickly gained a reputation for being nearly as harsh and unforgiving as behemoths like Bathurst and the Ring.
Being just a few meters away from the Canadian border, the Detroit Raceway at Belle Isle is probably the most punishing track for the cars on iRacing. On top of that, most of the 14 turns on this 2.4 mile long track are off camber, with extremely high curbs, so hitting them in a Spec Racer Ford might end your race right there and then. As Joe just said, not only is this track punishing for the car, but also punishing for the driver, as they have to stay 100% focused over the bumpy surface this street circuit has to offer. Actually, it is quite close to the bumpiness of real-life scenery. But let us give you a good insight in how hard this track really is to master and take you on board of our GSRC lap guide. Alright, we're here in the GSRC Spec Racer Ford on beautiful Belle Isle. Coming out of the start-finish line, we immediately need to get ready to brake for turn 1. Staying tight here and setting the car up for the run through turn 2 is of utmost importance, as the long round on Central Avenue follows. Even though it is not the longest straight, we will be able to see the most passing action play out here as the hard braking zone into turn 3 follows. A sharp 90-degree corner with high curbs on the inside, which can easily throw you off balance and end your lap early. Next up, a fast and bumpy right-hand kink. Being brave here and taking the curb is key. A quick switch of sides is needed, as turn 5 already awaits the competitors. Extremely easy to lose the car on the off-cambered exit here. Drivers must face the most important turn of this track, as the incredibly rough turn 6 leads them directly onto straight drive. The second good passing opportunity is the upcoming turn 7, but the wide track switches sides twice plus narrows down to the very tight apex, making passing very hard to come by. Furthermore, the curb here is extremely high and hitting it will send you on two wheels. Once again, the track swaps sides for the slow turn 8, which has a big dip on the apex for an added degree of challenge. Two left-hand apexes in front of the fountain follow, with yet another tricky braking zone due to the off-throttle oversteer this car has. Having mastered this, drivers once again need to take all the courage in their hands as the risky drive through turns 12 and 13 follows. Taking speed through these two corners is crucial for lap time, but taking too fast can end in tears. All we're now left with is the flat-out right-hand kink of Sunset Drive. But hopefully you've kept it all together and finished a lap around the Detroit Raceway at Belle Isle.
They see a lap around Detroit and how bumpy it is. Thanks to Steph for the lap there. We'll see a whole lot more of the cars bouncing around as the race goes on. But, well, if you damage your Spec Racer, why don't you check out Southeast Spec Racer? They are a full-service Spec Racer Ford prep shop located in Daytona Beach, Florida, offering a fleet of race-ready SRFs and the driver coaching to go with it. SSR is your one-stop shop for all things spec. They also offer transportation and storage, parts, and advice. You can find them at southeastspecracer.com. Looking at the drivers try to get laps in. The number of them are having problems trying to do that so far. So let's take a look at the championship while we wait for more of them to try and get a time on the board. The Spec 1 is led by Kane Halliburton, but not by much. That bad finish last week certainly hurt. You could see Steve Elson jumps up one and is only 3 points away. Daniel Sadro, Henrik Lindhoff, and David Gaspers also gain a position each, but are closer fighting to each other. Sadro and Lindhoff there only 3 points apart from each other, and then it's a little ways down to Gaspers. Steph, what are we looking at for Spec 2, though? Is it just as tight?
Well, it's pretty much Groundhog Day at the top. Alejandro Lero, he is still leading your Spec 2 drivers. One thing you can't see there, penalty points. He is right now minus 14 on that regard. Bob Kerr behind him in second place. 11 points behind, but he hasn't picked up a single penalty point so far this season in 4 races that we did so far. At Doherty, he's gaining 1 position, 28 points behind Adam Bradshaw. He lost this position, but the 2 UK drivers, they're switching positions. Adam Bradshaw, 40 points behind. Jeff Cantor gaining 1 position into the top 5. He goes just 7 points behind Adam Bradshaw, and it's starting to thin up a little bit here at the top of your Spec 2 drivers standing.
Well, we've talked so much about the bumps that the drivers are dealing with. What about the actual stats of the race? So let's take a look at the race details. We are in round 5 of 9. They get 1 drop week. So those bad results we keep talking about, well, they can have 1 of them, but they don't want to have too many more. The cars are open setup, so anything that you can do to the real Spec Racer, you can do here in iRacing, but they've limited the fuel compared to what real life has. So you can expect 1 scheduled pit stop in this 40-minute sprint race. Now, they have 100 points for a win here, 90 for second and 83 for third, but everything on down to last place is portioned to 25 points for last place. They also have penalty points. You can see there, every 10 incidents that they accrue, they get 2 penalty points on how many they earn for this race. They also have a fast repair. I have a feeling a lot of drivers will kind of need that today. We'll see just how many once we hit the checkered flag. But before we get to that checkered flag, while we've got a chance here in the pre-race show, why don't you subscribe here to the iRacing Esports Network? Of course, they have all kinds of great action here on IESN, not just the Spec Racers here with the Weekend Warriors, but also all the World Championship Series. The new Porsche Series, the World Championship there, and of course, the oval side with the Gen 6 Cup cars, and the Dirt Championship Series get shown here on IESN, so you don't want to miss out on that by subscribing. As well, we want to encourage you, if you're in a business where you have to keep track of the condition of a number of vehicles, whether it be rental cars, limousines, construction vehicles, or many other vehicle types, you've got a lot to stay on top of. For people like you, Inspect a Ride is the fastest way to conduct your vehicle inspections and create reports. You can save time, eliminate paper, keep better inspection records, and simplify your life all from your iPhone, iPad, or Android phone or tablet. You can find out more at inspectoride.com/iRacing, where you can even download a free trial to find out if Inspect a Ride is right for you. Check it out. Once again, that address is inspectoride.com/iRacing. Taking a look at the qualifying, we've got quite a few more drivers out there with times now, but David Gaspers is up at the top, and he seems to feel so safe, or maybe he's just so sick of this course, Steph, that he's not putting any more laps in. He's taking it into the pits.
Well, looking at the difference between first and second, which is a whopping 1.1 seconds, he feels probably quite safe right now.
Yeah, no surprise that we've got some big gaps out there. Bertoni currently in second. We're on board with him. He's even got a little bit of damage in there. He gets a little bit of more damage on the left side, so he's going to abandon that lap. Antonio Reese is actually in third behind him, and he's getting close to finish lap. He's a lot closer to the number 21 than Bertoni is to Gaspers. So as he comes around 12 and 13, looks like he's on an out lap, so this one won't be a fast one.
One thing we have to quickly talk about, Kane Halliburton, he is in the server, but he is disconnected from it. He hasn't turned a single lap so far, not even in practice, and a lot of the other top guys, so Manekov or also Dimitris Hudiludis, they are all not here today.
Well, that could throw the championship a little bit up on its head as well. We're watching Steve Elson, who's only as high as 7th. He was in 6th, but it looks like someone went a little bit faster. So the UK and I driver early on in the lap. He's got 2 timed ones down. A 46 flat is his fastest. I'm seeing a lot of drivers with blank laps out there. I'm guessing we're already seeing drivers find the limit as Elson clips the wall. So that one probably won't count for him either.
Nope, in real life it would count, but not in iRacing. 0x is your lap done. Steve Elson, he is one of 2 drivers sitting on a 46.0 right now.
Let's see, looks like Lindoff was the one that managed to jump up the order and demote a few drivers. He got a little closer to Gaspers. He's in 2nd, but he's still 0.8 off of our leader. So if Gaspers can keep it safe, it looks like he could handily have this race, but I'm thinking that nothing is guaranteed today here, Steph.
I just wanted to say Andres Bertoni is on a fast lap as he clatters the wall out of turn 13 and ends his good lap right there, going right now through turn 2. But yeah, it might throw it wide open, but we are talking here about the Spec Racer Ford, who really doesn't like bumps on probably the most bumpiest track that we have on iRacing.
Looking at the Spec 2 drivers, Alejandro Liero is our highest at the moment. He is sitting in 6th position. This seems to be becoming a trend with Alejandro, having found quite a bit of speed lately. He's about 1.1 off of our pole sitter even, so he's not doing too bad. Daniel Sadro seems to have dethroned Hendrik Lindoff. He's now moved up to 2nd and is now 7/10. Nobody seems to be able to get anywhere near the number 23 car.
Yeah, David Gaspers, he is really just doing what he has to do. Get that 1st place and then stay in that 1st place and get those points that he really needs to, hopefully, in his case, dethrone Kane Halliburton from the standings lead.
Now, one driver who isn't out right now, unfortunately, we just want to give him a mention. Glad to see a familiar name jump over here to a little bit lesser powered car. Gary Teal comes over from the Lotus 49 and is giving a go at another car with a lot of suspension trouble, you have to say. So as we watch Gaspers work his way around, I guess he feels enough under threat that he's going to give it one more go. We've only got 1.5 minutes left on the clock, so he'll get 1 timed lap on the board before all is said and done. We're watching Bob Kern down in 18th. See, we're seeing a lot of walls being touched. Now, is that a danger more for the suspension than for damaging the aerodynamics of the car? I know these, you can lose some top end, but is it easy to knock the car out of tow?
I would say so, yes, especially with my experience in trying to do the lap guide for this week. It is most definitely possible to knock your steering wheel all about, but David Gaspers, on his outlap, he just crossed the line doing 1 more lap here. As we watch Rick Hansen here, the real problem here is, as you said, it's not about the air because we don't have that much long of straights here, but it's really not knocking anything of your geometry off the car because it can really hurt you through all these bumpy and off-camber turns.
Filippo Negroni in 21st, and he improves a little bit, but stays in 21st in that number 15 car, so going to be a little bit down the order. We haven't even talked about the difficulty in passing, though. Qualifying probably going to be critical as the checkered flag comes out, Steph.
Yeah, we discussed this behind the scenes. The only real passing zone that you have is that turn 3 because of the turn 7, which is where David Gaspers is on right now, strand drive. This braking zone, you have that left kink in it, and the track narrows down quite a lot to that apex. So you really have to be very sure and quite a bit alongside to be able to make a pass happen into turn 7.
Alejandro Liero, our leader in the Spec 2, is going to cross the line. The pole sitter is trying to improve, but that doesn't count for him. Antonio Reese, who sits 5th overall, tries to put a faster one in and does not succeed. Who else is going to finish their lap here soon? Looks like Daniel Sadro, who is in 2nd, is going to give up on his. David Gaspers, our pole sitter, is trying to continue to dominate. He is going to complete his lap. Let's see what the DH driver has in store for us. Holds the right side. This one is faster, a 44.7 now for him. So he bumps it back up to 0.8 over Sadro. McAreevy, in the meantime, moves to 4th. Is that everybody? Checking to see if anybody else is going to be able to come across the line. I think that is it. Our grid is now set. So let's go through your starting order. David Gaspers with a handy gap over the rest of the field starting on the pole. Daniel Sadro is really going to have to hustle to try to chase him down starting from the outside of the front row. Then it's Henrik Lindhoff finding himself in 3rd with Jerry McAreevy in the dying stages, managing to bump himself up to 4th. Andre Bertoni starts P5 with Antonio Reese starting in 6th. Chris Murakami will be P7. That is a great qualifying for the 01 car. I think that's much higher than we're used to seeing from him. Then Alejandro Liero starts P8. Steve Elson will be in 9th, and Jason Perry rounds out the top 10.
Donald Fitterer will be your first car in 11th. He is 2nd place in the Spec 2 grid. James Tibor 12th. Gorka Iterati in 13th. Fred Desai, the number 76 machine, in 14th. Edward Doherty 15th place overall. 3rd in your Spec 2 class. Gary Teal, the Lotus 49 driver, in 16th. Tom Gradwell 17th. Bob Kern is 18th. Mark Gehan will line up in 19th. And we will have Rick Hansen in 20th.
Filippo Negroni did improve on his final attempt up to a 49.1. That puts him in 21st with Jeff Cantor behind him in 22nd. The next row starts with Joshua Borges-Bonkowski in 23rd. Dan Babbitt will be 24th next to him. Gary Wobold, P25 when the green drops, with Wendell Lowe starting 26th. Then we get to the cars that did not get a timed lap in. Kane Halliburton is not here, so we do not expect him to take the grid. If he does, he'll be 28th. Richard Yolland, 29th. Richard Franco, 30th. And then the last of the field, actually Miro Frasky in 30th, I believe. I'm seeing a bit of a screwed up grid order on my screen. So we wait for the cars to take off on the short little pace lap that they've got here. And then we go racing for 40 minutes. Miro Frasky will start the race, it looks like. Not sure why he was out of order on my screen. Regardless, Roof Pace Car going to lead them around just 2 corners, then duck into the pit entry. They'll come around turn 14 on Sunset Bend and get the green flag. Is this going to be a romp by David Gaspers? Is he going to find himself climbing back up the order in the championship? It's been a bit of a weird one. There's been 2 wins for Kane Halliburton in the 4 rounds contested, but the other 2 have gone to Gaspers and Manenkov. Manenkov well down the points order, and not here today, as Steph mentioned. Pace car now coming around those 2 right-handers.
One thing real quick. One thing we have to look at, turn 2 with the hump in the middle and the understeer these cars have, we might see some little bit of problems with that understeer.
We'll see if anybody does as green flag comes out here in round 5 of the Weekend Warriors. Gaspers with a fantastic jump. Lindhoff immediately moves into 2nd. Sadro, unfortunately, not a good start. Back into 3rd immediately. Most of them getting single file through 1 and 2. That could be a big help to keep from seeing too much chaos. Already, they're heading down Central Avenue, and look at them weave to try to break the draft.
Yes, and the first few people are actually staying like they are. The first side-by-side is between Jason Perry and Steve Elson in 9th place. As we have a car on the grass there, that was Gary McAreevy.
Everybody else mostly safe through the first corner. Didn't see too bad of any incidents. Maybe a little bumping back there. A little side-by-side through 5, almost 3 wide. That was Perry, Murakami, and Elson. And somehow they made it through the other end.
David Gaspers getting a big shot from Hendrik Lindhoff through turn 6, nearly losing him. And Hendrik, the lead there, Daniel Sadra is now in second, just overtook Hendrik Lindhoff because of that. So David Gaspers, he might have been quite a lot faster in the qualifying. He's really under pressure here from these guys in the race so far.
Well, good news for the fans, bad news for David Gaspers. They hit the fountain section for the first time in anger. And everybody seems to be single file, thank goodness. Oh, we do have one car in the wall. Gary Teal, unfortunately a bad start to his Weekend Warriors career. Hits the wall hard. He's down in 20th place and continuing to drop. He seems to be limping, and he's actually up and over. I'd say that's some damaged suspension.
It sure does seem so with him tumbling there.
This seems to be more of a glitch than anything. Don't think it... Oh, no, he was helped over by the curb. Started to turn him over. Well, that was a very short career.
I talked about it in the lap guide. These curbs are really dangerous if being hit, and Gary Teal shows that with quite some spectacular way.
So that leaves us with, looks like about 24 drivers left out on track. A few others had to come in. Tom Gradwell with a bit of damage. Edward Doherty, Wendell Lowe, and Dan Babick.
Really quick here, Alejandro Liero, if we jump to him, you can see his whole right side being completely messed up from clattering the wall in turn 2. And you can see Jason Perry, he's overtaking him. You can see how much it's costing him in straight line speed right there.
Breaking down for 7, that causes a bit of a checkup behind him. That's Murakami and Elson going side by side. These guys have got to get it sorted out as Sadro finds himself, backwards on the course here in the fountain section.
Yeah, the dip in turn 8 caught him out a little bit there. Too much on the throttle, spins it around as we go on to the replay here. There you can see it just spins it out, and he just now got back in the right direction, putting it way down.
He had to wait for a lot of cars to go by. It's so little room in this narrow part of the course. Now, he didn't hit anything, so at least he's got a clean car, but 19th position for the number 51. Not good considering he had a front row start. Gaspers, in the meantime, is starting to set off into the sunset. He has set the fastest lap, and Hendrik Lindhoff already 1.6 back behind him. In fact, our top 3 stretching apart from each other.
Yeah, David Gaspers, he is now benefiting from the mistake of Sadro. Sadro was right behind him. Lindhoff was already starting to drop off ever so little, and you can see that in the gap.
And Liero and Elson have come to blows down in turn 3. Central Avenue finds its first victim here as Elson trying to make a late dive up the inside and follow Murakami through, just doesn't go off. Liero not expecting him, just steers into him.
Yes, I think that was 2 things into one. Don't go, especially with the thinking. Liero wanted to do a bit of an undercut there on the pass from Murakami, and Elson not expecting that, trying to follow through, and together they come.
And he later hit the wall and turned himself over, had to take a tow. Caused a bit of a mess. I think some damage went to Bob Kern, maybe Mark Gehan, and Gary Woolbolt. All of them still continuing. You can see the Scandinavian, unfortunately, taking it to the pits for his spare car, most likely. So, we've seen a lot of front drivers find themselves with a horrible start to this race in the first 5 minutes. Gasper's not one of them. He's still leading. Lindhoff still in second. Bertoni runs in third, but drops very quickly. He's already 3 seconds behind second place, and very much under threat from Jerry McAreevy, who now finds himself promoted up to 4th.
Yes, indeed, and the attrition is already starting to play a little bit. I thought that these guys might be able to keep off the walls for a little bit longer, but it just shows how hard this car really is to drive here.
We've got a multi-car incident over in 13-14. Joshua Borsch-Bonkowski involved, Rick Hansen and Miro Fraski all piling in together. I think this started with Fraski. Looks like he spun on his own. Then you're going to see him try to get turned around. And unfortunately, once again, a blind corner, narrow track. Oof. Wow, that was a hard hit. Watch Joshua's view. That's Raski spinning it. This is the Club West driver, number 542. This should give us a good idea of just how blind this corner is.
Yeah, right around the wall. There's also those signs up, so you can't really see anything. And then, up, there he is, and over he goes.
Up to 7th place, Murakami, in yet another battle. James Tabor is going to get by, and Donald Fitter as well. I think that started with, oh, there's damage on the car of Murakami.
Yes.
He's hit something, and that's why he's so slow.
He hit the wall out of turn 5 on the right side. Just too much throttle there and hits the wall very hard.
Well, despite it hampering his speed, he's deciding to stay out. The scheduled pit stop window is not exactly open quite yet. So I'm guessing he's trying to gut it out until he can come in and not have to have an extra stop. Let's take a look at the battle for 13th. Fred Desai and Mark Gehan in a nice little fight. Although they are in Spec 1 and Spec 2, overall position does still count for points. You can see Gehan in the green machine. That is Desai in the black and yellow, leading him down Central Avenue towards turn 3. Not close enough this time, though. Weaving their way through 4, 5, and 6 now. It always surprises me how quick turn 4 is in any car.
Yeah, it really is. In this car, you actually have to take the inside curb to be really fast here, because if you go onto that curb, you're actually missing quite some heavy bumps on the inside there. So that actually makes this turn even faster than it normally would be.
And Fred Desai seems to be leaving Gehan in the dust and now chasing down Bob Kern. That's going to be for 12th position. He's gaining at a rate of knots, actually. I wonder if Desai, was he one of the ones that qualified out of position? No, he started in 14th. He's up to 13th now. Just seems to have really got his legs underneath him. Look how close he is to Bob Kern already. Not much of a passing opportunity here into 12 and 13. Maybe turn 1, Steph. Is that any good?
You can try something, but you have to be side by side as Bob Kern.
He's going to let him through. Maybe he's just thinking he just wants to get to the end. He doesn't want the pressure. Murakami now comes in.
Probably too much damage on his car. Takes the free repair right there. I wonder if he's already able to get from here to the end. We don't have a Stevie Ray in here, so we can't tell you if the pit window is already open or not.
Steve, known for his early stop strategies, helping him get some good results. This is Bertoni that we're watching.
Fitter spinning out of turn 6. He was 7th place driver, your first Spec 2 car. As we go on to replay here. Through turn 5 he goes, switch back to the left there again, and then just on the throttle over the bumps, he loses it.
Wow, you can really get a sense of how much that car's bounding around. He did a good job keeping it off the wall. He was inches away from that rear spoiler. Turns back around, gets going, but now he's down in 10th. Still the leader, though, of our Spec 2 race today. He's got a number of positions ahead of Gehan and Cantor, who currently hold down the podium.
Bob Kern, don't forget about Bob Kern. He is also in 13th, or he was in 13th, until he made a mistake into turn 7, clattering the tire barrier very hard.
Let's take a look at that one. Kern, despite his attempts at trying to make this a safer race and let some of the faster drivers through, let's see from on board.
Yeah, just
a little bit wide. Ooh.
He just missed his braking marker there. Quite an uncommon mistake for Bob.
I take it back, not a little bit wide, a lot wide. And clatters into the tires, unfortunately. He does keep going. He does not pit, interestingly.
One guy who is really trying to come back is Daniel Satter right now, side by side with Fred Desai, who lets him by, move him up into 11th position.
Yeah, I noticed him passing a few cars earlier. Certainly climbed a ways up. Remember, he was 19th before when he got it turned around. As Steph said, now up to P11. Next on his list, Miro Hraski is a lapped car, and then he's got Donald Fitterer, the leader of the Spec 2, to crack into the top 10. We haven't taken a look at the leaders a whole lot, and, well, that's starting to get a little interesting. Lindoff, Bertoni, and McAreevy have all closed in, so the battle for second could be up for grabs.
Yeah, especially Gary McAreevy. He's about 2/10 faster than the two guys ahead of him. It does seem like that Eric Lindoff is right now the weak link in this battle for P2, but he is the car dictating the pace, so he really has all the cards still up his sleeve.
On board with McAreevy, getting awful close to Bertoni, coming through turn 2, a lot tighter to the apex. We could see the bumps causing him to have to lift slightly. Bertoni ducks it off to the left side, does not cover him off. McAreevy follows. In the meantime, up ahead of them, Lindoff braking a little earlier than the other two. Unfortunately, no chance for Bertoni down into turn 3, but they get ever closer to one another. Don't have to go to it. I can report Steve Elson has gone into the pits. I think that's a scheduled stop for him.
Alright, let's see what Andres Bertoni can do right now. Henrik Lindoff, he had a much better run out of turn 6, so that's really keeping him right now quite safe into turn 7 from the other two guys. Gary McAreevy, he gets the better run on Andres Bertoni, but once again not close enough to do anything here into turn 7, so they stay single file.
Sure, that's going to frustrate the drivers if Lindoff keeps finding himself good exits out of the critical corners. This is not a place where you can typically pass through the fountain section.
Oh!
What happened to McAreevy?
Yeah, he had a big slide there out of the turn, trying to give himself a bit too much throttle. Hits the tall, extremely tall inside curb out of turn 11. So, yeah, a lot of space lost there for him.
Yeah, he's got to really get back on the horse now as we ride on board with Bertoni. Still giving chase on Lindoff. This is where he wants to get that run off of turn 2. Ooh, and Lindoff looked a little bit slow this time. Could this be the chance for Andre to have a go down into turn 3? They fly down Central Avenue. A little bit of a defensive move. Covers off the middle of the road. Does Lindoff. And back to the racing line. Bertoni looking for the over-under, but there's just not enough of a straightaway down to 4.
Yeah, Lindoff was a bit too wide through turn 2. Had to lift on the exit of turn 2 to not hit the wall like some others already did in his position. So Andres Bertoni, I'm a bit surprised he didn't try to go to the inside there.
Well, it looks like the early pitting Steve this time is being played by Elson. He's our leader of the drivers who have pitted. He's up in 12th and not seeing anybody else really close to him. Murakami's pitted, obviously. Doherty has been in and out. They're multiple positions down. Tell you what, Donald Fitterer down in 9th is catching Gorka Iturrate. And I wonder if we'll see a pass for 8th back here soon, because it's about half a second separating them as we ride on board with Donald now.
Up in front you can see Gorky Gerard with a little bit of a spoiler there, because he seems like got hit probably in the early stages of the first lap when everyone is very, very close packed together. But
oh no, Sadro had another problem, and this one is race ending. Let's take a look at the replay. It's the fountain section once again. Turn 7 looks to have upset the car, and then unfortunately it's going to be a case of overcorrection, Steph.
Yeah, I think he misjudged his braking point ever so slightly. They're going wide and then just not able to catch it in time, and hard into the wall he goes.
Had to take a tow, unfortunately, so he will not get a good points finish today. We've got a few more drivers pitting as we look at... Oh,
Gary McGreevy, he's now in 3rd place. How did that happen? It was a beautiful pass into turn 3, actually.
He and Bertoni went side by side. Let's watch from on board here. That red and white machine, that is Bertoni.
There they are side by side already, and then round the outside he goes through turn 3 and makes the pass happen.
Not an easy move, and he hasn't lost time up to Lindoff all that much, so he's going to go give chase while Bertoni turns it around. And his Austin Powers moment leaves him losing another position on top of it.
That kind of started in turn 7 already, as he was sliding there and not able to get his car under control in time for turn 8, as Gary McGreevy now has his sights set for that P2 of Henrik Lindoff.
And how about Jason Perry, who we're riding on board with for a moment there? He's caught the back of Bertoni. He started in 10th, he's in 6th. He's looking at a potential top 5. And as I say that, Bertoni now comes into the pits. So where is Elson? Is Bertoni potentially going to be battling with him? Because the number 56 is coming towards turn 12. Bertoni's just getting to his stall. About 10 to 12 second pit stops that we should see here today.
Off he goes. Where is Steve Elson?
He's coming down Sunset Drive. I think Bertoni is going to be out well ahead of him, so he should be safe. And now our highest pitter.
Yes, there's about half a straight length there between the two down Central Avenue. And I can report Gary McGreevy, he is getting closer and closer to Henrik Lindoff.
He's got it down to within half a second now as they hit turn 7 into the fountain section. And not really much to do through here. Just try to keep the car steady over the bumps. Up towards 11. Sometimes you could see surprise attacks, a big bobble coming out of there as Lindoff holds it together, but obviously feeling a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, Lindoff, he is starting to do a bit of Bullock style here in Detroit. It's really costing him time right now. Look at the run Gary McGreevy has here. Does he try something into turn 1? He looks... No, he doesn't.
Decides to back out of it through 1 and 2. Could he set himself up off of the hump? He tries to get on the power, and it looks pretty good. He's well within the slipstream, and he's got the momentum. Oh, but he backs out of it. He definitely lifted. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, Lindoff, he once again had to brake through turn 2 to make the turn on the outside, and Gary McGreevy, he is quite extensionally faster than Lindoff, so I don't really understand why he is lifting and saving fuel behind Hendrik right now.
Alright, so we're going to lose picture, so apologies for a second. We just have a little technical issue to take care of, but we'll keep you up to date if something happens to this battle. I think they're far enough apart as they come down chase that McGreevy won't have a go into turn 7. He's gaining a little bit, but as Steph talked about, the tricky braking really doesn't offer him an opportunity, so he stays behind in that third position. They're now into the fountain section. Lindoff still leading in second place. I can report that they are 12 seconds back from David Gaspers as he continues to streak away. And now we've got our picture back, thankfully.
Yeah, but David Gaspers, he's starting to run into a little bit of traffic. He just passed Filippo Negroni and Bob Kern there in 19th and 20th. So, yeah, it's starting to get a bit thicker for him. Right in front of Henrik Lindoff, though, we have the battle of 21st between Alejandro Liero and Daniel Sadro.
Sadro's come back out, took his spare car. These are two drivers who are probably wishing they were fighting for higher positions. Liero tends to be a leader in Spec 2. Sadro tends to be a front runner in Spec 1. And the Spec 1 is going to overtake the Spec 2 down Central Avenue. Makes it look easy braking into turn 3.
I think he was helped there a little bit by Alejandro Liero, as he was, I think, lifting or at least braking a little bit early. But they have now set their sights on Bob Kern, who is just a few seconds ahead of Daniel Sadro.
Speaking of Spec 2, why don't we check in on our Spec 2 leader, give him some love. It's still Donald Fitterer, the number 211 in 7th. You can see him heading down Central Avenue himself right now. He's being chased by the likes of Gehan and Cantor still, but a long, long ways back from him. Actually, Gehan and Cantor are relatively close to one another, so that fight for second place in Spec 2 could erupt at any moment. You see Cantor in the yellow and maroon car. That is Gehan in the green machine, the 225.
Right behind them, we also have Chris Murakami, who we're riding now on board with. So I think Chris Murakami could spoil. Oh, Jeff Cantor.
Is that just simple out braking? I think he locked him up, yeah. You see, we saw a little bit of smoke off of his car there on its way into turn 3, but he got it going once again. Oh, did we have an incident with Edward Doherty? He's in the pits with a lot of damage right now. This doesn't look like it was recent, unfortunately, so not sure that we'll be able to get a replay, but Doherty well down the order, unfortunately.
This is quite far back. I see him driving at least 2 laps with that damage, so probably can't get to that.
Meanwhile, let's go back up to the battle for second. Lindoff, who's been dealing with the pressure very well from 2 different drivers. McAreevy, actually 3 different drivers, I think it is, maybe, that we've seen. The number 67 giving chase. They come up towards the backstretch.
And this might get interesting because they're getting closer and closer to the battle for 18th, and that is a 4-car battle for that position. So they might run into a little bit of problems with traffic.
Yeah, Sadro just overtook another car, Bob Kern, up ahead of them. You could see that 4-car train as we ride on board with McAreevy. And indeed, what's interesting is that's Lindoff's teammate, Liero, at the back of that train. So I wonder how much help he's going to get once he approaches them. Liero is a little bit distracted, though. He's trying to pass Bob Kern right now. You can see him side by side up to 12, and Kern is going to facilitate that pass. He lifts up to that corner.
That was synchronized passing there by Alejandro Liero and Daniel Sadro as they both overtake someone pretty much in sync. So that was interesting. But yeah, Henrik Lindoff, Bob Kern, he is now getting the blue flags already. So Henrik Lindoff probably will not get held up here at all, and actually will gain some draft here, as with that exit in the pits, that's Jeff Cantor.
Cantor coming back out. They're going to go 3 wide, and it looks like Lindoff is going to be able to sneak through. Don't think McAreevy's quite close enough for go. He's staying to the inside anyways, and that's not going to be good enough for him. But yes, it's always a good thing to see cars in sync on the back streets here at Detroit, as we've got 14 minutes left and pit stops are close to being done. Who's that off there?
That was Gary Walbot. That was 15th place when he crossed the line. So Daniel Sadler once again gaining some positions because of pit lane, and that was very close between Daniel Sadler and Filippo Negroni.
Still waiting on a number of the front runners to come in for their stops. Oh, Fitterer pits, our leader in the Spec 2.
Oh, that was really close for Henrik Lindhoff, nearly running into the back of his own teammate, nearly offering also the chance to Gary McGreevy to get past into second place there.
Got to stop watching our timing and scoring, start watching the screen here, because, wow, this is getting interesting between our leaders. All right, he's up to his teammate. He unfortunately caused him a headache once. Will he let him by the next time he gets close to him? We ride on board. We were riding on board with Lindhoff there. We were looking back at the likes of McAreevy.
Oh, McAreevy. Into
pitting.
The pits he goes. He also hit the wall a little bit on my screen. Picked up ever so slight damage on his left side. But Gary McAreevy probably takes the smart route here, not getting held up much more by the traffic, and gets himself a nice, good track position.
Yeah, I think that was a smart move, to be honest. He's joined by Antonio Reese, who comes in. And let's see if anybody else of the top runners. Gorka Iturrate still needs to take his stop, as he currently runs in 6th. But it looks like he's going to continue on. Rick Hansen, the only other one besides Perry, Lindhoff, and Gaspers, who need to take their stop. Hansen looking a little bit worse for the wear, though, here. In his number 236.
Alejandro Liero with a very interesting accident there. We don't have to go to it, but letting his teammate by Henrik Lindhoff, he actually spun himself out on the outside of turn 3, doing a nice 360 donut and carrying on in now 17th position.
Yeah, it cost him a little bit of time, but I don't think it actually cost him a position. No, he did let Bob Kern and I think Cantor by as well. So 2 spots lost from that little error.
Oh, I also see now some damage on David Gasper's car. I'm gonna try to find out where. Oh, he lost it into turn 1, way wide. They're hitting the tire wall incredibly hard.
As he pits, we're gonna see if we can pull up the replay here. It looks like it was a full lap ago. So, oh yeah, here we've got it.
Yeah, that's very interesting accident, because he was really fast into turn 1, like he totally forgot about the turn. Look at that.
Wow. Yeah, once he was out in the gray stuff, there was no catching that thing. Let's watch from on board. And that meant he had to take a whole lap with the car limping around. Oof, wow. Yeah, that's a hard hit. I'm amazed he didn't lose more time. He is back out, and he's actually going to retain the lead because everybody else is pitting behind him. Lindhoff is in and out, but McAreevy jumps Lindhoff. With the pit stop, second place has changed hands.
Yeah, there you can see how much Henrik Lindhoff was getting held up by his teammate there. So, yeah, McAreevy pitting early, doing the undercut actually paid off very well for him there.
And Antonio Reese has gotten by Andre Bertoni for 4th place. So Andre finding himself losing multiple positions in that exchange. Oh, and Murakami has had an incident. The 01 finds himself turned the wrong way in 12 and 13. I think he avoided hitting anything, though. Let's watch the replay.
Yeah, let's have a look at the replay here. What does Chris Murakami do here? Goes into turn 12. And did he hit the curb? No, he didn't. He just loses it over the bumps.
Nicely done. He gets a little bit of a gap mercifully and gets the car turned around, gets going in 11th.
Also, one thing about Reese and Bertoni, I think they actually also jumped Gorka Iturrate in the pit lanes, because he is now in 7th place behind them.
Iturrate hasn't pitted, I'm seeing. So I think he's still got to take his stop, unless I've got an error in my timing and scoring. Bizarre, because he's up in 6th right now. Still under 10 minutes to go here in round 5 at Detroit. We've had a little bit of attrition, but I think the spare cars have saved a number of people today. Yeah, Gorka has not taken a stop because here he comes in now. This will promote Elson up to 6th, Perry up to 7th.
Oh, David Gaspers getting once again held up by lap traffic. Bit of miscommunication between him and Negroni. And David Gaspers, he is, I think, starting to lose ever so slightly out to Gary McGreevy, who is really driving away from Henrik Lindhoff quite heavily. As Henrik Lindhoff nearly spins it through turn 4 there.
Ooh, slides it again through 5. That car does not look like it's handling well. And I'm not seeing damage on it, so I'm not sure why he's having such an issue in these final minutes of the race. The good news for David Gaspers is with 8.5 minutes left and an 8-second gap between himself and McAreevy, unless Gaspers really cuts down on his pace, I don't think McAreevy's got a chance to try to take this win.
Well, he has right now 3 cars in front of him. Whoa! That was close there for David Gaspers, once again hitting the curb there and nearly losing the car completely there. Had to lock up the brakes and lost some time.
What a save that was. The number 23 certainly having his hands full. Even if you're racing by yourself, it looks like there is no guarantee that you're safe. He's got a whole lot more lap traffic. This is Hansen, Kern, and Cantor. Cantor's going to pull over. Excuse me, no, that's Haraski pulling over, letting them through. Gaspers gets 1, and I think that's all he's going to get.
The 2 cars of Cantor and Haraski look quite similar there, so I also had those 2 mistaking quite a few times there again. But Gary McAreevy, he took out, I think, 2 seconds there over the last lap on David Gaspers, so we might see a late challenge from Gary McAreevy on David Gaspers.
Update on the Spec 2 championship, though Fitterer still leads. Fred Desai has managed to overtake him for 9th. Still a top 10, no mean feat for a Spec 2 driver. Now, remember Alejandro Liero, who started on the pole for Spec 2? Well, he has gotten it back out, and he's on the podium now, despite multiple errors. The 282 is trying to chase down Gehan, but he's got 6 seconds up to do it.
Yeah, but Gehan seems damaged because he's really slow right now, especially through the turn.
I think we're getting... Is this a replay of Kern that we're going to watch? Yes, it is. This is a comedy of errors here, as Kern takes it in a little too hot, then he gets turned around by the likes of Hansen, and he's nose-to-nose with Miro Hraski. And in other sports, you want to see the whites of their eyes, but not in racing.
No, and Bob Kern is extremely hurt. He is crabbing quite a bit, slowly driving back to the pits.
I think this is a race that is going to leave a lot of drivers licking their wounds, unfortunately. See the New York driver having quite a difficult time trying to get it back so that he can call it a day and hit the showers a little bit early. Most of our battles are starting to separate now. I think everybody is mostly concerned with just running their own race and less worried about who they're fighting. Good news for Gaspers is McAreevy has not gained a whole lot. It's still 8 seconds between the 2 of them.
Yeah, but I have to talk here very shortly about Gary McAreevy and his tactics of staying behind Henrik Lindhoff, because in the laps since he overtook Henrik because of the pit lane strategy that he pulled off, he has put 5 seconds between himself and Henrik, so he really got held up quite a lot by Henrik. So I'm not really sure what Gary was thinking there, but I think he wasn't really thinking that he might be able to challenge David here.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. He probably should have pitted much earlier. and try to jump Lindoff as soon as that pit window opened, as he's down to ninth now due to the traffic that he had with Hansen. Looks like, Liero gets another one, but that's because Guillen's very slow. Why is Mark Guillen so slow, though? Did he have an incident? I don't believe so. No, it looks like he was just letting them through.
Now, he is driving really slowly for the last 2 to 3 laps, like even 2 or 3 seconds off his own pace, so he is damaged and just driving his car home, not wanting to have a DNF to his name.
Is it damage, or is it maybe he short-filled it? I wonder. Meanwhile, as we jump up to 12th, this is Tabor and Sadro. Daniel still on his run through the field. And he's going to have to go the long way around at turn 7 as both of them outbrake themselves, but they both get through somehow, still side by side coming through turn 8, and Tabor finally has to give up the ghost.
That was incredibly close between Sadro and a wall, and Sadro and Tibor, so really lucky that we didn't see anything bad happen there.
Yeah, I was worried. A multicolored car of Tabor so tight into turn 7, I thought he was going to outbrake himself and run into the side of Sadro, just adding to his woes. Meanwhile, I think we've got a couple cars in the pits. Negroni seems to have ended his race. Murakami is coming in. Oh, remember, he pitted way early, and I think Chris did not have enough fuel to get to the end.
Yeah, remember, he did pit extremely early due to his damage, as we now focus our attention on Antonio Rice and Andres Bertoni, as Andres Bertoni is quite close to the back of Antonio Rice.
This is a good battle for a high position, 4th place, up for grabs with only 2 minutes left to go. Remember, Bertoni was farther up the order before his pit stops, and he doesn't seem to have had a terribly slow stop necessarily. He's going to go the long way around, and that was a lift. A little bit of help from Antonio. Number 77 going to settle for 5th.
Now, interesting development between Gary McAreevy and Henrik Lindoff. Henrik Lindoff, over the last 2 laps, since we last talked about these two, Henrik Lindoff, he has closed in 3 seconds on Gary McAreevy.
Now, McAreevy had a much shorter pit stop than Lindoff. The number 8, 13.9 seconds in his stall. McAreevy, 9.8. Again, we haven't talked a whole lot about fuel because that's not been the main concern for most of the drivers, but you can still screw it up around here.
Yes, you can. You can screw it always up, and that's always a liability. Now, since we said that the difference between those two is 4 seconds on the pit
McAreevy just hit the wall. McAreevy bends it coming into turn 7, and that's going to hand it back over to Lindoff. Wow! Less than a minute to go on the clock, and he has to take a tow. The UK&I driver, unfortunately, falls victim to one of iRacing's most punishing tracks.
Not the first guy we see outbraking himself into turn 7, taking it way too deep, hitting the wall, and ending his race right there. And
while we were on the replay, the white flag came out for David Gaspers. That extends the gap back to 2nd place, with McAreevy falling afoul of the tires. The number 8 of Lindoff, a whole 14 seconds back there now. And that would mean that Bertoni now finds himself with a podium finish. He started from 5th. He's now up to 3rd.
Yeah, this might still get interesting. Also, Antonio Rice with quite a lot of damage to his right side. So I'm not sure how much he will be able to challenge Andres Bertoni for that last place on the podium.
But it's David Gaspers who is thanking not only his lucky stars, but his spare cars for a potential win here today. All he has to do is cruise it home. He's a lot safer there than McAreevy was through turn 7. in through the fountain section. You got to take it home, David. Just a few more corners to go. Oh my goodness. How much is his heart in his throat right now? Look at him just putter it through the corners. Probably looking at that F3 box to see how close second place is. Through 12 and through 13. Now he can keep it flat out to the finish. The number 23 almost threw it away, but with his heart pounding, David Gasper is going to take a win here today at Detroit.
Yes, and Henrik Lindorf coming through turn 13 as of right now, and now he also only has the full throttle kink of turn 14 here on Sunset Drive to complete and to take home his second place.
Bertoni follows him home with a podium. Well-earned one, and Reese close behind him. Steve Elson with the top 5, we should point out as well, started from 9th place. He's followed home with the same amount of points, positions gained by Jason Perry, going from 10th to 6th. And is it just me? Does Gorka Iterati look a little slow? Not sure if he's potentially saving fuel here. He's going to get himself a 7th place, most likely, with Fred Desai following him home. And then our Spec 2 winner. Looks like it's going to be Donald Fitterer. The 211 coming to the line in 9th place. Started in 11th. A nice run from him.
Yeah, a really good run there from Donald Fitterer. As I said, gaining 2 places from his starting grid to finish inside the top 10.
It's going to make the last car in the lead lap, Chris Murakami in 11th, as the rest of them stream across the finish line here. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. But stick around, because on screen you're going to see all the upcoming races for GSRC. Welcome back to Detroit Belle Isle, and well, this was a fascinating and exciting race, not just for us here in the booth and not just for the viewers, but For the drivers as well, they had to hold their breath probably the whole 40 minutes here today. Even David Gaspers, because despite his big gap at the end of about 15 seconds, you see there on our graphic, he nearly threw it away even in the final few corners. Henrik Lindhoff followed him home with a second place finish, and Andre Bertoni rounds out the podium. Antonio Rees curiously handed away that podium late in the race, but still got fourth. Steven Elson finds himself P5. Jason Perry with a 6th place finish, and Gorka Iturrate coming home in 7th. Fred Desai finishes 8th, with Donald Fitterer coming home 9th, and the top 10 rounded out by Daniel Sadro, who did not have a good day.
The 01 machine of Chris Murakami in 11th place is already your last car on the lead lap. Gary McGreevy, he is your first car not to finish this race due to a very unfortunate incident there in turn 7. James Tieber finishes in 13th, Mark Yehan 14th, Jeff Cantor finishing in 15th, Rick Hansen 16th, Alejandro Liero, unlucky finisher in 17th, Gary Teal 18th. He was able to carry on and bring home actually a really good result there in his first race. Gary Walbot 19th, and Edward Doherty rounding out the top 20.
21st goes to Miro Rasky with Dan Babick in 22nd. Then it's Todd Gradwell finishing 23rd, and Filippo Negroni 24th. Bob Kern 25th. I think our first DNF for the day. Wendell Lowe 26th, and Joshua Borge Bonkowski 27th. Kane Halliburton, Richard Yellen, and Richard Franco were did not starts. With that, we've got our winner ready to talk to us. David Gaspers comes in the booth. Have you calmed your nerves? Because we did happen to catch that last little bobble on the final lap.
That one in the final lap wasn't a real problem. I'm quite happy that I could still drive after what I did before a pit stop.
That one too. Yeah, we managed to go and see that incident as well. What exactly happened there? Did you just miss your brake marker? Because we didn't often see incidents into turn 1.
Yeah, I was talking to some others on Discord and didn't really focus on what I was doing and braked at the 200 sign instead of a 300.
Well, didn't anybody tell you not to text and drive at the same time, David?
No, I was talking, not texting.
Well, regardless, you did manage to get the win, and this will certainly be helpful in the championship because Halliburton wasn't here. Now, this track obviously incredibly difficult in this car with the bouncing going on and whatnot, the bumps unsettling the car. So coming in, how did you prepare for this? And mentally, how did you decide to attack this race, especially considering the dangers that it has?
I don't think that's a real problem here. Once you get the normal line right, the car doesn't really want to slide anymore, so it's not that hard. You just have to be a bit more careful with walls around.
Well, thankfully, you only hit it once, and it was right before your pit stop came in. How do you feel coming up to Montreal? Because that's going to be a similar challenge with it being a very street course-like.
I really like the track, but I won't be at home for a Weekend Warriors race.
Oh, that's a shame. That'll be unfortunate. We hope to see you at the following race then when we come back in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, I should be there.
That was David Gaspers, our winner here today at Detroit. Second place, Henrik Lindhoff is ready to talk to Stefan.
No, we are actually talking with another winner, Donald Fitterer, the winner of the Spec 2 class. They're finishing in 9th position. Actually, Donald, you had a bit of an up and down race. Talk us through your race here.
Oh my gosh, I did not practice enough. And you're right, I had some spins, and luckily I didn't hit a wall, and my pitting wasn't so good. I definitely needed more practice, but I'm happy to be where I am. Thanks.
Hey, if you don't practice enough and still finish in 9th place winning your class, I would say that's still an incredibly good finish there. We already talked about David Gaspers about the problems this track offers, especially to Spec Racer Ford drivers. How did you prepare yourself pretty much mentally for the punishment that you're gonna take?
Well, again, with many of the races that I do where I'm not as fast as the others, I just try not to make a mistake. And if this race I made a couple, but luckily it wasn't too detrimental, so I was able to keep going. But I'm using David's setup, and it is just so bumpy out there that no matter what setup you have, it's hard to get through those bumps.
Yeah, quick outlook into the future. How are you going to tackle Secret Villeneuve in next week's race?
Again, hopefully practice a little bit more than I did this last week. And yeah, just try to be consistent. I really enjoyed this series, and I've driven the SRF for about 5 years.
Well, there you have it. Consistency is key with the winner here of your Spec 2 class, Donald Fitterer, finishing in 9th place, and Joe Peak has caught up with Henrik Lindorf, your 2nd place finisher of this race.
Yes, now we actually have Henrik in the booth with us. 2nd place out there, Henrik, but you had to withstand some pressure. You got overtaken a couple times, but it looks like in the end it all came back to you.
Yeah, that was a tricky race, actually. I think I had a very good pace today, which was nice. But as you said, a lot of pressure behind all the time. I was never on my own, really, except for the 2 laps at the pit stop there. And maybe took a little bit too much fuel and got overtaken by Gary there. But he eventually spun out, and I could get the 2nd place back. So it was quite an eventful race, actually. No real. I couldn't take it easy out there today.
Would you like this circuit to be back on the schedule next season? What are your feelings about it?
Absolutely, it's probably the most fun I've had in this car in a very long time. It's an amazing track, actually, and very hard. And you really need to be the best driver you can be here.
Well, you've been getting better and better results lately. What do you attribute to your climb up to the top of the pack?
I really do think just experience, actually, because first race was hard. I didn't really know what to expect, and I might have taken it a bit too careful going through the corners and with the cars and lapped cars and stuff. But yeah, it's coming to me now, and it's a lot of setup work as well. You have to have quite a good setup, but I think we're getting there. 2nd place now and 3rd the last week, so soon we'll be there.
All right. Well, congratulations on P2 out there today. You were a survivor, that is for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
That is Henrik Lindorf, who managed to run all the way to the checkers, which his opponents couldn't necessarily tout. Meanwhile, we have Daniel Sadro joining us. Stefan Schlacker is going to ask him about his race.
Yeah, and we saw quite an interesting race from Daniel Sadro, running in 2nd place, or actually qualifying in 2nd place, and then, yeah, having some issues there and climbing up the ladder. So, Daniel, you actually probably have quite some mixed feelings about this race.
Well, yeah, I had 21 good laps out of 23, which is, Mrs. Lincoln, aside from that, how did you like the play? But no, I made 2 big mistakes. I spun out on the 2nd lap and then crashed in the infield, or the little turnabout thing, about halfway through. And but I just kept my head in it, decided to keep going, and just made the best out of it. And it was, I had a lot of fun.
Well, we heard from Henrik just before you, and he said he really likes this track. He likes the punishment this track gives out. How are your feelings towards the Detroit Raceway at Belle Isle?
I really like the track. I clearly have been faster here than I've been other places, and usually I'm a little better than some other people at keeping it moving in the right direction. So it was just an anomaly today, but I absolutely like the track.
Well, so another one who likes the virtual punishment from the track there. But looking forward to the somewhat street circuit-ish track of Montreal, how are you going to prepare for that? Because it is a bit of a different track to Detroit.
Well, I'm going to prepare for it the same way that I do most weeks. I start on Sunday nights. We have a practice session called Full Speed that we run every Sunday night, and Monday night in the European time zone we've got another one. I'll run a couple races, try to keep it out of the wall as best I can, and then by Sunday hopefully I'll know how to go around the track.
Well, there you have it. Practice is really important here. A full week of practice for Daniel Sadro ahead. Before we let you go, anyone you want to thank who made this racing possible for you?
Well, I'll first of all thank you guys for broadcasting. Thanks to Steve Ray for putting together the league. Thanks to Southeast Spec Racer for sponsoring the broadcast. Thanks to my parents for having me, who if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here today. So a lot of thanks, and thanks to everybody who's helped me just be better. And David Gaspers has given me so much good advice that really has helped me get towards the top of the field.
Well, thanks, Mom and Dad, there for helping Daniel out. That was your 10th place finisher, and I said it off screen, I'm gonna say it again. This race really was incredible to watch, and the attrition rate way lower than I honestly expected.
And that's always a good thing. We like to see drivers manage to see the checkered flag. And, well, we've seen the checkered flag on this broadcast as well. So we want to thank a few people before we go. Another thank you goes out to Southeast Spec Racer. Again, if you're interested in racing real Spec Racer cars, check them out at southeastspecracer.com. They are located in Daytona Beach, Florida. As well, thanks to Inspector Ride. And if you want to check out them, go to inspectorride.com/iRacing. Once again, they have a free trial that you can find there that you can download, and that is inspectorride.com/iRacing. A big thanks to iRacing themselves. They brought us onto the iRacing Esports Network here for the Weekend Warriors, and I think that's a good decision. You can see what kind of awesome races they have. You should reward them by subscribing, because then you won't miss any of the Weekend Warriors races, as well as plenty of the other action that you can catch here on IESN. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Steph, Amjed, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. The next race, as we mentioned, we're just hopping across the border going to Montreal. That'll be Sunday, February 10th at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. We got nothing else here on GSRC today, so you can go enjoy the Super Bowl. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.